Daybreak Africa is your one-stop top-notch breakfast show that brings you all the interesting stories happening in and around Africa.
Because we have all the morning essentials,
including the latest news, sports, weather, and events. And of course, the people.
Daybreak Africa on television Nigerian.
Weekdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
A very beautiful good morning to you, and it is our pleasure to welcome you on today's edition of Daybreak Africa on television Nigeria. My name is Elvis Oga.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Messi Joe. I hope you all slept fine. I had a good night rest.
Myself, yeah, I had a good night rest. The weather was actually very
I can see.
Nice. We slept fine.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, true.
But we start with the figures of COVID-19 in Nigeria.
Okay.
Nigeria recorded 315 new cases yesterday, bringing to a total of 12,801 cases in Nigeria. Total discharge now 4,040 discharges. Deaths, sadly, 361. The reason why we bring all this figure to you each and every other day is for us to know the progress so far in the discharged cases and know how know the spike of new cases in the country.
A quick study at the figures across the different states of the federation actually showed Lagos still having most of the cases from yesterday, followed by FCT, and then we had a River State surprisingly.
FCT has been recording quite a number of cases
compared to what we were having in the past, and then River State actually joining in the list of state with most of the cases, and then maybe that will actually want to make some people reason or understand with the proactive measure or the extreme that the governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, was trying to put in place way back then, even though it didn't sit well with so many people, which were trying to see if he could actually, or who actually were of the opinion that he would have actually been able to do it in a different way, especially with the demolition of those two hotels. But like you said, those figures are actually out to guide us to know the progress that we've actually recorded
with the discharge
cases, and then to know how many tests have actually been carried out, and then how many active cases we still have.
We still have in the country. Well, a video sprung up online during the weekend, or during
the weekend.
The statue of Edward Colston
being pulled down by Black Lives Matter protest.
Yes, angry protesters. Yes, he was a prominent 17th century slave trader. And he has been quite controversial in Bristol for a number of years before his deaths in 1721. So
you know, when you study that name, Edward Colston, you see that he actually took part. So many people believe he made quite a good number of his fortunes from slave trade.
Yes.
Way back in the 16th and 17th century. And one will begin to wonder, okay, if at a time where the world is actually saying or claiming to have condemned acts like slave trade, and then we've been having a series of campaigns against slave trade that actually led to people abolishing the slave trade. Why erect a statue to honor somebody who was believed to have benefited so much from slave trade? I think that is one of the reasons why the protesters actually remember their past wounds, and then they came out to pull down the statues. And if you see the manner they actually went about the whole stuff, they used trains to pull it down and then drag it and threw it into a river. But you were trying to look at...
cut you short there, sorry. Let's play the video of Edmund Colston's statue being pulled down so that people can get a clearer view of it. Then we talk more about it.
Okay, you saw for yourself right there how the manner at which it was pulled down and then it was actually rolled into the river, like we were analyzing before we had to take a look at that video.
Yes, the Prime Minister actually said it's a criminal act, that the protesters could have gone a long way to actually campaign for the removal of the statue rather than pulling it down, and he felt that if being a criminal act, it means that the people or persons found guilty of this act will be held accountable.
So with that multitude of people that actually went out there,
how do they figure out?
Are they going to trace some CCTV footages and then see if they could pick some faces and all of that? Would that actually amount to a good justice dispensation, or how do we put
again
that? Because
another talk about justice coming in place.
And you were trying to bring or pay an insight into some of his other activities that may actually warrant maybe the erection of his statue.
The charities that he gave actually, to during after his death, he gave the whole of his wealth to charity. And quite lots of memorial for him that he did for the people regardless. So
to balance it all, that could be the reason why.
So he was a slave trader, but he still had a thing for charity. And he still did for charity a long way. So probably that's why they erected his statue. But I'm not justifying that a slave trader should actually have a statue erected in any place.
You know, a critical look at him, I actually want to put that this is kind of a life or lifestyle to side by side with robbing Peter to pay Paul. Because from findings, he is believed to have made his fortune from slave trade.
Yes.
And then he went ahead to donate the money into charity. So it's more like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, that's what Elvis had to say. More like what?
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, the thing is that I just pray that the government find a way to really handle this situation. Let it not be a case of, because I know there are some faces that you can actually put and pick from the videos. So let it not be a situation they start picking these people again, and then you see situations where they have to, well, we just pray everything will actually be fine. Let's join Susan Achin on the news desk for news. Or rather, I'm sorry, let's go on a quick break.
There are a lot of false information about the coronavirus. These are the facts. People of all ages can be affected by the coronavirus. However, older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes, heart diseases are more vulnerable to the disease. It is not for old people alone. Gargling salt and warm water or chewing garlic and ginger cannot prevent the virus. Drinking alcohol, hot lemon, palm oil or chloroquine will not kill the virus. The virus cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. Antibiotics do not work against the viruses. Antibiotics work only against bacteria. Boiling pineapple peels, lime and ginger does not kill the virus. Putting raw onions in rooms will not ward off the virus. Using or spraying Dettol, special oils and water all over your body cannot kill the virus. There is no scientific evidence that cooking, drinking or eating any of these is an effective treatment for coronavirus. Do not self-medicate and take responsibility by sharing only verified messages from health authorities such as NCDC, Federal Ministry of Health and WHO.
wash your hands every time. Don't ever shake hands. Stay away from mammals, they can cause infection. Stop hugging, we can chase it away. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Coronavirus is a danger disease, a danger disease. We can fight it and win. Coronavirus is a danger disease, a danger disease. We can fight it and win. Don't be scared, we got this in our hands. God is on our side. Stay in your house if you feel positive, breathe with the situation and keep a distance from a person infected with COVID-19. Call a doctor when you feel pain in your chest. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Pick up High Production. Coronavirus is a danger disease, a danger disease. We can fight it and win. Coronavirus is a danger disease, a danger disease. We can fight it and win. Coronavirus is a danger disease, a danger disease. We can fight it and win. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Oh, we can make it. Yeah, we can chase it away. Machaga, African.
Good morning and welcome to AM News. I am Susan Achin. Bail was set at $1 million on Monday for the Minneapolis police officer charged with the murder of George Floyd, as mourners paid their respects in his hometown of Houston to the African-American man whose death has sparked massive protests for racial justice across the United States and beyond. In Washington, Democratic lawmakers knelt in silent tribute to Floyd before unveiling a package of police reforms in response to the killing of Black Americans by law enforcement. The move comes a day after the Minneapolis City Council voted to dismantle and rebuild the police department in Minnesota City, where the 46-year-old Floyd died during a May 25th arrest. Derek Chauvin, the police officer who was filmed pressing his knee on the handcuffed Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes until he expired, made his first court appearance on Monday. Chauvin appeared by video from state prison to face charges of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter. In a procedural hearing that did not require Chauvin to submit a plea, the Hennepin County District Court judge set his bail at $1 million with conditions and $1.25 million without conditions. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC) has announced 315 new positive cases of COVID-19 in the country. NCDC disclosed this in a tweet on Monday night, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria to 12,801. According to the health agency, Lagos State recorded the highest number of infections for the day in the country, with 128 cases, while the Federal Capital Territory and Rivers had 34 and 32 respectively. A further breakdown of the new cases showed Edo State with 28 infections, Oyo 22, Kaduna 20, Gombe 13, Ogun 8, and Plateau 5. Others are Delta and Kwara States with 7 cases, Kano 5, Bauchi 4, and Katsina 2. Of the number of positive cases, Nigeria so far 40% have fully recovered and have been discharged, while 361 persons have died. The federal government has declared Friday, June 12, as public holiday to mark this year's Democracy Day celebration. The Minister of Interior of Aregbesola made the announcement on Monday via a statement issued by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Interior, Georgina Ehuria. While congratulating Nigerians at home and abroad for entrenchment of democratic rule in the country, Aregbesola commended the heroes of democracy for their dogged determination and sacrifice in promoting democracy in the country. Now, the House of Representatives on Monday grilled members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 over the expenditure of funds allocated and donated for the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The PTF Chairman and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and the Minister of Health, Professor Osage Hanire, were represented by permanent secretaries. In attendance at the session were the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, and the National Coordinator of the PTF, Dr. Sani Aliyu. This comes as the Permanent Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Olusegun Adekunle, revealed that over 22 billion naira has been so far released to the PTF for its reopening. Nasarawa State Governor Abdullahi Sule has relieved Mr. Ahmed Tijani of his appointment as a Secretary to the State Government SSG. The Permanent Secretary of the Government House Administration, Hamza Gayam, announced this in a statement on Monday. According to the statement, Governor Sule asked Tijani to hand over all the government properties in his possession to the Permanent Secretary, Cabinet Affairs and Special Duty in the office of the SSG with immediate effect. This followed Tijani's indictment by the Nasarawa State House of Assembly for alleged misappropriation of over 200 million naira. Furthermore, a rainstorm has blown up temporary shelters of internally displaced persons, IDPs, living in a host community-based camp in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. The camp, located at low-cost B Shagari Housing Estate, is home to 40 households ejected from a private property last year. The temporary shelter was provided by the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCCG. The storm, which occurred yesterday evening, destroyed the fence as well as the makeshift tents. Although no one sustained any injury, the IDPs, however, cried out for urgent assistance as they have now lost their homes. Now on to the entertainment scene. Nigerian singer and producer Augustine Miles Kelechi, also known as Techno, recently mentioned among the top 5 most viewed Nigerians on YouTube. A Nigerian Twitter page identified as Niger Charts, which is dedicated to music updates, shared a list of the top 5 most streamed Nigerians of all time on Monday, June 8. According to the list, Davido came first with over 606 million views, Techno came second with over 572 million views, and Burna Boy came third with over 504 million views. The rating was based on all-time accumulated number of audio-visual streams on the official YouTube channel of each celebrity listed. And that's it on AM News. I am Susan Achin.
Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Elvis.
Good morning, Susan.
Looking all prim and proper.
You're still looking fresh, like today's still Monday. So
there was still something that came to my ear when he said fresh. I don't know when he said something to bread. So
fresh bread, right?
Yes.
It's all good.
Bill
so many stories in the news.
Yeah. Bill set at $1 million for George Floyd's killers.
Mm.
Wow.
You know, this morning when you were saying something about it, before we came on air. I was asking, really?
Really?
They're giving bail for murder?
Should there even be bail?
Should there be something like that?
You know, when issues of judicial cases actually spring up like this, one need to look at it from the eye of the law and the angle of the law. I don't think they actually carved this out of the blue, out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It must have been in their constitution. So maybe this is another case of exposure, maybe of the lapses or loopholes in the constitution. So if something like this happens and now you are asking, should there be even bail at all? Which I believe that question is already on the minds of millions of people out there. So if the constitution actually permits people to be bailed even after killing others, I think it's about that time they revisit the constitution to see.
Yeah, actually, this is a constitutional issue and also an issue as regards the law enforcement agency, because he has been charged with first degree murder, second degree murder, and also manslaughter. And they are saying he has options. If the bill with there's the $1 million bill without an option, then the 1.25 with an option. I think the option is he will be stripped of his position. He will never be able to partake, to continue with his career, and then he will never be allowed to have any contact with George Floyd's family. Now, I know that looking at from the layman's point of view, this will look like a big deal in the eyes of a lot of people because it's more or less like just sentence him already. But apparently, there's a constitution on ground, and they will not be developing a new law just because it's a case. So, well, we'll just have to watch and see. When there's a bill, there's always that hope and feeling that, well, if there's a bill, it means that this person doesn't have to go through the kind of persecution that most people want him to go through, given the nature of the death of George Floyd. But anyways, just keep our fingers crossed and see how
that goes.
Our heart still remains with the family of George Floyd and everybody who has suffered every form of abuse or brutality in the force of any law enforcement officer at one time or the other.
Because of their color. Brainstorm in Borno blows off shelter of IDPs. Now, it's bad enough that they are displaced persons.
And now they're displaced again.
Now they're displaced again.
You thought the last time we had a similar story, it was about a fire got in a building, IDP camp, and we were actually raising this same concern. People that have been displaced, being displaced again.
Yes. So I think the issue is about having stronger structures, because apparently it's a tent and it is prone to be blown off
with a very
because
heavy
this season we're in rainy seasons, and then we know rainstorms occur in this time. So I really don't know. These people have been rendered homeless once again, and it must be very depressing for them. So I hope that the government.
And now, how fast will the government be able to?
Because in this time when everybody's hands are full economically,
COVID-19 and
war against corruption, gaining ground in the country, extending its eye or its strength to nearby Nasarawa.
Yes, well,
I came across that story.
Quick one. I mean, that was a quick move by the governor. To have taken that step, and I think that this is good because for him to have taken this step abruptly, it will serve as a deterrent to upcoming.
We must have to give kudos. We must have to give kudos to the state assembly that actually set up that committee to see that it was looked into. You see, when issues of education is being talked about, I become so particular about it because these were actually issues surrounding funds that were released to foster education in the state.
Sector. And we know how weak our system is.
Yeah, and it's not been accounted for. So I think the state assembly actually did well by looking into it, and then the governors acted upon it in a very prompt manner.
Because that money
and they should look into
too much.
I mean,
200 million.
You can imagine what that could do for the educational sector in Nasarawa State. And we know how the state is. A lot of development needs to be done. And then even looking at the educational sector and all that, and then
a state that is trying to bring and come into light with something that
they should even probe more into other sectors
and see what
people are actually looking at. Okay, is it enough for him to be relieved of his duties, or actually look into what are the laws say concerning situations or scenarios like this?
Well, I think this is the first step in the right direction. Yes, they have done this, and from here they can take it up. Maybe prosecute him for
because I think I got to understand something through Governor Wike when he said an executive order is as good as the law itself. So this is an executive order.
Of course.
True.
Yeah, the judiciary can take it up.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Always my pleasure. We now go across Africa for some more news. Stay with us.
This is news across Africa on Daybreak Africa. Farmers and miners in Ivory Coast are embracing the use of drones for light work. Until recently, stock checks and growth reports are done on foot, but now this is done in record time thanks to the equipment manufactured by Ivory Coast Drone. With a drone today, we can calculate the stockpile of gravel that's been produced. The customer said if it's true, we don't see how a drone can do that. Yes, it's possible. It goes through 3D machines, it goes through image processing, and we did the demonstration. We did a very simple test. They filled a truck with gravel, they weighed it, they didn't tell us the value, and then they poured the same amount of gravel and they asked us to do with the drone, and the results were almost the same, said Ivory Coast Drone CEO Maron Jeba. The devices have been imported into Ivory Coast in part, but the drones are reassembled and repaired in the country. Home-produced drones will cut costs and increase availability to local farmers. But project manager says a law imposed 2 years ago by the country's Civil Aviation Authority. Zimbabwe has tightened restrictions in a bid to curtail spread of the coronavirus as cases spike. On Tuesday, security forces cleared Harare's city center as they turned back commuters and motorists. They are searching the cars, and if you do not have a permit or letter, you are not allowed to pass. So it is now difficult to give a lift to someone who is not in possession of a letter, Tawanda Chimomomba, cab driver, said. In a statement, the police said only essential workers are allowed outdoors, while the rest of the population must stay at home. COVID-19 cases spiked from 34 to 203 from early May, with most of the cases being citizens returning from abroad. 4 deaths have been registered. Last month, restrictions were eased following a lockdown imposed on March 30, allowing large corporations to open but under strict safety conditions for staff and customers. Government spokesman Nick Magawana said there was nothing unusual about the tightened restrictions. Since the pandemic, 70 families have been relocated for free in nearby Wooden Challenge. Yes, it took a long of time to help us, but for many years we have been trying to get the government to help us. So now we are glad that they heard our call for help, that they have come to the help of the community. Mbata, a resident of the community, said, Wigglesprut is one of the 2,700 neighborhoods that politicians only remember during elections, but fearing that overcrowding and poverty could lead to the spread of the coronavirus, authorities have accelerated access to health facilities and relocated the poor. This coronavirus is not good, but I like it because without the coronavirus, it was impossible for us to get clean by the government. So the coronavirus at least made it possible for things to move for us, Rebecca Jane, a beneficiary, said. These results of extreme poverty are legacy of the apartheid regime, which deprives Black South Africans of land ownership, thus moving them to rural areas far from the city centers. More than 1 million families continue to live in these townships more than 25 years after the end of the regime. The office of the president in South Sudan confirmed a shooting incident in the capital, Juba, early Wednesday morning. A statement signed by Press Secretary Anthony Wekanteni said the president was saddened about the shooting incident that occurred in Sherikat, Juba. The statement voiced the president's condemnation and said a full probe was underway. The perpetrator has been arrested by authorities and is under close monitor in hospital in a critical condition. The gunman took the lives of 5 persons in the incident, 4 men and a woman. The statement dismissed report that he was the son of the president. It said he was a distant relative of the president. President Kiir's son is called Luasavi Kiir Mayada, who wasn't involved in the incident. The incident will be investigated and public will be informed of the outcome through the court of law. The statement added, protests broke out in the area where the incident took place as residents blocked roads and burned tires. The wife of former Lesotho Minister Thomas Tabane, who was charged with the murder of her husband's first wife, returned to prison on Wednesday after the court annulled her judicial review. Messiah Tabane, 43, was charged in February for her involvement in the 2017 murder of Lipolelo Tabane, the first wife of former head of government Thomas Tabane. A few weeks after the crime, she had married Thomas Tabane. Last week, Lesotho Court of Appeal overturned the controversial judicial review measures she had enjoyed. Judge Tame Tame told her she will remain in prison and will be reconvened on 16 June 2020. Messiah Tabane, dressed in a tracksuit brown coat and sneakers, simply replied to the magistrate, "Yes, I understand." Ms. Tabane had already spent a few hours in prison earlier this year before being released on parole in exchange for the payment of a bill of 1,000 maloti, which is about €50. After the cancellation of the judicial supervision measures from which Ms. Tabane benefited, the police could not immediately proceed with her arrest because she was in neighboring South Africa with her husband, who had come there for treatment. She was arrested on her return to the country. That is the much we have for you on News Across Africa. Daybreak Africa continues shortly.
This is still Daybreak Africa on television Nigeria. Just listening to some interesting stories across Africa right there on our News Across Africa segment. We'll now take you to our newspaper review segment where we take a look at some headlines from some of the national dailies. And the first newspaper we'll be taking a look at is the Punch newspaper. Meanwhile, we have Victor Temba, who is always here. Victor, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Victor. You look bright this morning.
Thank you.
I don't know, everybody's actually looking bright on
Thank you.
Tuesday like it's still morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's funny.
It's a cool Tuesday morning. It's a good day to look cool.
Very, very good day.
Okay, so let's take a look at headlines from the Punch newspaper. 50% of Kano 979 strange death caused by coronavirus, says federal government. That story can be found on page 2 and on page 28 of the Punch newspaper. COVID-19 pandemic just beginning in Nigeria, declares PTF. Southeast should have more cases over resident mobility. That is coming from NCDC. And then we have the picture story. Below the picture story, assembly to summon file share over Ekiti finances. You can check that out on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And then father of 3 jailed for duping American lady, still on page 5 of the Punch newspaper.
A lot of stories there, but the major story making the headline on the Punch newspaper: 50% of 979 cases being related or linked to coronavirus pandemic. So if you talk about 979, so we're talking about basically about 49 people plus, or thereabout. What am I saying? 459 people and more from that. So if 400, what do you call it? The date rate so far, or the date number that we have registered is about 361.
Yes, 361.
And then we are seeing 50% of 979. Yeah, we are of that nature. So we're talking about extra 470 something people already. So with this, I remember while I was watching the whole briefing yesterday, somebody asked a question that would this figure be added to the ones that we already have, but unfortunately I wasn't available to listen to the reply of that question. But then it's also interesting to see. I wanted to see what that would mean. So were they going to add it to what we have? Because I was expecting that today we are going to if they're going to add it to what we already have, then by today the figures we'll be seeing today should reflect that addition of those
I think they should add it by now.
Yeah, so there'll be no need having separate records for the same virus.
Yes.
So if they are related, then you add it to whatever we have. Remember, China also updated their record when they later found out that some people at home died from the virus, and so they updated their records, and that so we might also get to do that. Yeah.
All right, let's move to the Guardian newspaper. The main headline here: illegal gold mining rips Nigeria off forex revenue. Below that, nation's gold dominates Dubai market. NMGS: how illegal mining paralyzes agricultural activities. Now you can get all of that on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. Below the picture nameplate: doctors to begin nationwide strike June 15th. There's already a date slated for the strike to begin. That's on page 3. Beside that, drunken police sergeant kills colleague in Lagos. Well, that's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. And I'll take this last one. We are investing to dismantle Nigeria. IPOB wants presidency.
Investing to dismantle Nigeria. No, that is not surprising.
Is it the same Nigeria they're out from?
Yeah, but you know, despite the fact that they have, we are all Nigerians, they have never really accepted the fact that they are Nigerians. They mostly want to identify themselves as Biafrans, which is why the B in the IPOB stands for Biafra. And whatever they've been doing so far has been towards that dismantling of Nigeria, as you might want to call it, because they feel it's a contraction that shouldn't be or shouldn't happen. But then they are entitled to their own opinions and reasonings. And so we look at the fact that illegal gold mining in Nigeria, and then when you look at the illegal gold mining in Nigeria, it's mostly done by the Chinese. And then we wonder exactly what it would have caused these Chinese people to really get official licenses, set up their companies, get official licenses from the government to mine whatever. And then during the bandit crisis in Zamfara State, we got to find out that one of the issues, one of the factors fueling the bandits' operations in the state was the fact of this illegal gold mining. In order to there were factions between these militias and trying to get control of territories so that they can continue to mine and whatever. And then I basically get to realize that at a point, when I was growing up, I used to think that Nigeria was a country that was basically different from every other African country that we used to hear, whether Uganda, the Sudan, the Central African Republic, Congo, whatever it is. But then I later realized that Africa is actually a country. We are all the same. You just keep saying the same thing all over. And definitely the fact that it is being done illegally, it means no legal money goes to the federal government, to the government coffer. So in that vein, yes, we are losing money. We are losing forests, we are losing foreign exchange from that. Imagine we had control of this and we were getting revenue from it. That would be fine. And I don't understand why the Chinese, more like Nigerians, would like to get themselves involved in illegal activities in someone else's country. For that matter. I remember back in Lagos, behind our estate, there's like an NNPC pipeline. Sometimes it leaks and then people get fuel, whatever. So we had this group of Chinese within the estate that gets to, you might call it, mine fuel from that forest or whatever you might call it. And we know, like, even Nigerians themselves, if Nigerians are doing it, we could basically understand. But then you as a visitor, you come in and then you are doing the same thing and all of that money. But gladly they were arrested at some point.
Okay, when like you were talking about, when you go further to study that story, there's another part of it that shows that Nigerians or nations' gold dominates Dubai market. It has to tell you the extent of the loss we actually incur from these illegal activities. And then if we actually have this money done legally, we see that, okay, the employment opportunity it will create will actually have more benefit than what it's doing, because basically now it's more like a menial job that you just give people peanut for something. But if it's actually done in a legal way, you see that, okay, people will actually benefit from it more.
Yes, definitely. And then I don't usually get to understand why it has never been clear to me why these sort of cases are more rife in Africa than any place in the world. Other countries that some people like to call advanced countries, when they have like this kind of resources, natural resources, there's a way that it's being managed for the benefit of the country and the entire populace. But here in Africa, that I have noticed, it's always a source of conflicts and violence, killings. So when you go to Central African Republic, you basically realize that one of the reasons for their civil war, their prolonged civil war, has been simply because who is going to be in charge of the control of resources of mining diamonds. The same situation you had in Sierra Leone, the same situation you had in Liberia. It's all about who gets to control these resources. We've seen it in Nigeria, bandits. We've seen it in Niger Delta, the militants, and so on and so forth. So I don't know why this is very particular in Africa than other places of the world.
All right, let's take a look at headlines from the Nation newspaper. We have a story here concerning the case with Abia State Governor. With a caption, Abia Governor hands over to Deputy Ikpeazu in isolation. That can be found on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. NDDC, Senator used 11 firms to get 3.6 billion naira jobs. You can still check that out on page 8 of the Nation newspaper rather. And then we have no link with companies. Ex-US director at AFDB, but additional deserves another term. Page 5 has that story on the Nation newspaper. And then the banner headline here says, government worried about breach of rules by churches and mosques. Nigerians still at risk of coronavirus infection. 60% of 979 deaths in 8 Kano councils COVID-19 related. We had Punch reporting 50%, but the Nation is saying 60% of the death in Kano And then we also have this concerning Edo Primary. No neck meeting before Edo Primary, says APC. That story can be found on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Court maintains status quo. PDP not keen on Opaseki Akeredolu's deputy.
Well, one last story there that actually take away that we basically overlooked in the previous paper was the fact that the NCDC is saying that that the pandemic is just getting started in Nigeria, and already it seems scary. It sounds scary because for the fact that we have already exhausted our restrictive measures of the lockdown, whatever. So it means that we were applying the lockdown measures when we didn't really have a pandemic in our hands. So what are we going to do when the pandemic
is really out of hand?
It's getting
out of hand.
and basically that. So also looking at the fact that one senator used 13 firms to get contract jobs.
3 points.
All of that. So this is not something secret. At the time where the quest to probe NCDC, NDDC came up, basically we're looking like, as a matter of fact, almost everybody from Niger Delta, or however you want to call it, have had hand in this. And at the point when it was Akpabio calling for the probe of the NDDC, let's not forget that like two previous chairmen of the board, or rather 2 steps back, the chairman of the board in the penultimate one before the one he came, was handpicked by him and recommended by him. And that one was also alleged to have embezzled a lot of millions, also paid about 1 billion naira for contract for lesson consultation and all of that. So I'm looking like, so if he's calling for the probe, how is he going to hide his own involvement? Because at this point, this was your person, and then we know how Nigeria is. When you assist somebody get into a particular position, that person must scratch your back, and all of that. So getting one senator, but then we just look at the grid. When you look at our senators, they are lawmakers. When Nigerians say these guys are being paid jumbo pay, they come out to defend and tell a lot of stories of how they are not receiving jumbo pay, and how whatever they are receiving is not yet even enough for them to go about their duties. But then you see senators and House of First Member living in unbelievable opulence. Where did this money come from? That is just one of the ways you can get how they come from.
Yeah, that's just one of the revelations.
Sure, yes.
All right, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. The main headline here: schools reopening. Federal government meets WAEC, NECO, NAPTEB. 60% of we took that story already in the other newspaper. 60% of 979 Kanu mysterious deaths due to COVID-19. That's coming from the federal government. Reps demand reports on 83 billion naira approved by presidency for PTF. Abia governor, NDDC workers test positive. Akeredolu's laments rapid rises in cases in Ondo State. Edo State records 5 new cases. There's this picture nameplate here. You can see the members of the National Association of Nigeria Students, NANS, and National Association of Polytechnic Students, NAPS, protesting against incessant rape cases in Nigeria in Ibadan, Oyo State on Monday. Below that picture nameplate, Nigeria's economy to contract by 3.2% as global economy shrinks by 5.2%. That's coming from the World Bank. I'll take this last story here. Court adjourns suit on Edo APC primaries till Thursday.
So there are discussions about schools reopening. So it means that there is a silver lining that schools might reopen anytime soon. I give it, let's say, 2 weeks that they might be asked to resume, and I think it will be called up or be lifted up simply for those who are going to write WAEC, so they can basically go about that. But then give it 2 weeks, I believe they will have come up with a template, a proper guideline that should guide how schools should open and candidates can go about their exams and all of that. So there are other stories as we're looking at Abia State, where the governor got infected. And then the fact that he handed over immediately to his deputy. I think that is what we want to see. And in these recent times, it's most of the things that we have been seeing happening that once the principal is not available or he will seem not to be available, he hands over to his deputy so that they go ahead with the job. Unlike when we had at the time where governors are afraid to hand over to their own
deputies.
Yes, I don't know why that was actually a major scare, but then it's a very fantastic one now that people are really being constitutional about the way they govern their states.
Okay. Right. Let's take a look at the headlines from this day newspaper. Above the nameplate, we have former U.S. director at AFDB backs additional second term bid. We took that from the previous papers we looked at. CBN sets to credit more applicants for 50 billion naira COVID-19 fund. You can check that out on page 6 of this day newspaper. Pressure mounts on APC to disqualify Obaseki from governorship race. Rather, party displays aspirants' credentials. Court adjourns suit to stop direct primary. Then we have the banner story here. FG links 587 of Kanu's unexplained death to COVID-19 pandemic. 315 new cases bring total to 12,801. 4,040 people discharged, 361 dead. Lagos allays fears of virulent virus. 70% of infected persons can't infect others, says report. Doctors to begin nationwide strike from June 15, and then federal government to pay 20 billion naira allowance to health workers. 150 health workers test positive. A whole lot of stories concerning COVID-19 there. And then a quick look at this one that actually caught my attention here. Court declines EFCC's bid for final forfeiture of Saraki's asset. That story is on the page 5 of this day's newspaper.
Okay, let's begin from the ex-US director at AFDB back in the, that's actually news. Some people wonder why it has graced the front page of almost all the newspapers. But then you have to understand that the US were the one who called for the probe, who were insisting that the AFDB president steps aside and then let the probe happen. Yes, and then coming for the fact that if a former US director at the AFDB is now backing this candidacy of additional, now puts into question the credibility of the U.S. the U.S. and Treasury in the first place, asking that he should be probed. So I think that's what makes it a news. And then the other story that also caught attention that should be really doctors going on strike on June 15th.
June 15th.
Now, why this happens just over the weekend, I think we saw that those health workers working at the Gogolada Isolation Center also went on strike or protest of non-payment of allowances and whatever that they are entitled to. Now doctors are going to go on strike. At a point in time, doctors were saying they will stay at home, giving a order to their members and all of that. It makes our fight and battle for reducing COVID-19 look like a joke anyway.
Anyway, let's take a look at the Business Day newspaper. The main headline here: amid scarcity, millions of meters wrought at Lagos port over 35% levy. NEC increases meter cost to reflect Naira devaluation. Beside the picture nameplate, 587 of 979 Kano's train deaths linked to COVID-19. That's coming from the federal government. Below that, World Bank projects Nigerian economy to shrink by 3.2% in 2020. That's on page 34. Above the nameplate, Nigeria's democracy hangs in the balance with infectious disease bill. You can get that on page 12 of the Business Day newspaper. Quite familiar headlines.
And there's basically no headline that will really gladden your hearts, if I may say. All just look gloomy, looking for the fact that we have meters, electricity meters, billing meters, rotting away at the port because of 35% levy. And we have a lot of houses who have not been metered. But then that also makes me to ask the question that at the time, I thought there was a time we empowered local production of metering so that they could meter our houses. So what about that?
What's happening?
But then we can understand, and then the discourse also increasing the tariff for electricity to reflect Naira exchange and dollar exchange. I don't really understand the rationale behind that.
Yes. No one
but
will need to wonder if we're actually generating dollars. Or I don't really understand.
Yeah, I think I'll just leave that to the experts.
Yeah, I go with him. We leave that with the experts. Thank you
and then
much.
The World Bank looking at the fact that our economy is going to shrink by 3.2%. Please, these guys should stop breaking our hearts every time they bring us statistics. They don't want to give us something good.
We need to hear something good.
Yeah, we need to hear something good, and I think with government being proactive, at the time we will not, or rather, we will make rubbish of this in prophecy.
Amen. Thank you very much, Victor Tahamba, for being with us this morning for the newspaper review. Let's launch 10 indigenous tribes of Africa.
Number 10, the Wudabe. This tribe is found in Niger and Chad. They speak the Fula language and are a subgroup of the Fulani. The Wudabe translate to the people of the taboo, which is a reference to them being separated from the Fulani centuries ago. Number 9, the Tuareg. These tribes are found in Niger, Algeria, Libya, and Mali. The tribe practices Islam but have unique customs that differ them from others who practice the religion. The group speaks Arabic, Hausa, Takmesh as their main language. Number 8, the Pygmies. This group consists of tribes living in the rainforests in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, as well as Rwanda. Pygmy tribe members are known to be very short and small. Number 7, the Maasai. One of the most well-known indigenous tribes in Africa, the Maasai are reported to have migrated from Sudan into Kenya and Tanzania. This group's lifestyle revolves around their cattle, as they consider cattle to be a sign of wealth and prestige. Number 6, the Karamojong. They are believed to have migrated from Ethiopia to Uganda, and their language has Nilo-Sahara traces, spoken in Uganda, South Sudan, and Kenya. They shun modern clothes and favor traditional clothing. Number 5, the Karo. The tribe occupies the lower Omo Valley in Ethiopia. They are known for their body art, which consists of a mixture of white chalk, yellow mineral rock, iron, and charcoal. They appear very unique and beautiful from all other tribes. Number 4, the Khoisan. Culturally, the Khoisan are divided into the San or the Bushmen and the pastoral Khoi. The Khoisan are the original inhabitants of southern Africa before the Bantu migration from the west and east of Africa. Number 3, the Dogon. These indigenous people of Mali are believed to be the descendants of the Egyptians. They are known for their vast astronomical knowledge, as well as their masked dances, wooden sculptures, and architecture. Number 2, the Hadza. Living off the shore of Tanzania's Lake Nyasa, the Hadza are one of the last groups of hunters and gatherers in the world. They speak a distinctive clicking language, which has led many people to believe they could be related to the Khoisan of southern Africa. Number 1, the Himba. The Himba resides in Namibia and Angola and have stuck to their traditions for centuries. At the moment, the tribe has about 30,000 to 50,000 members and are famous for their unique hairstyle and red ochre as they smear them all over their bodies to give them a nice, beautiful tint.
Truly, there are so many amazing things about Africa. I think I love this particular package today, 10 indigenous tribes of Africa.
Yes. We had up close and personal with indigenous tribes in Africa, both the one you're aware of and the one you're not aware of.
True.
You smiled? Watch this.
Yeah, because I love it.
Okay. All right, that's how much we can take today on the program Daybreak Africa here on television Nigeria. I've been your host, Mercy Joe.
Alongside myself, Elvis Agua. And I must confess that it's been an amazing ride. Join us tomorrow, same time, same station. Let's do this again. Until then, it's a bye-bye from us. But meanwhile,
we'll be leaving you a package with 27 amazing facts about Africa.
25. Africa is home to the world's largest living land animal, the African elephant. 24. It's also home to the world's tallest animal, the giraffe. 23. Africa and Europe are separated by barely 14 kilometers, and there has been some talk about building the world's longest bridge. 22. 40% of kids between the age of 5 and 14 are involved in child labor. 21. On average, people have to walk roughly 4 kilometers to collect water. 20. The water they collect is rarely drinkable though, and must be boiled before consumption. 19. 96 elephants are killed every day on the continent. 18. The deadliest animal on the continent, the one that is responsible for the most human deaths, is the hippopotamus. 17. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, Zimbabwe is the country with the most official languages at 16. Yes, I know that other countries could be said to have more, but this also depends on how you define a language versus a dialect. 16. There's actually a beer brewed from bananas in some countries. 15. Almost half of the gold ever mined on Earth has come from one small place, Witwatersrand, South Africa. 14. Between 1530 and 1780, nearly 1.5 million Europeans were sold into slavery in North Africa during what became known as the Barbary slave trade. 13. Lesotho is the only country on Earth that has no territory below 1,000 meters above sea level. 12. Facebook has 100 million users in Africa. 11. The official title of Idi Amin, the Ugandan dictator, was His Excellency President for Life Field Marshal Alhaji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, VC DSO MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. 10. In 2010, Ghana banned the sale of second-hand underwear. 9. The San people of southern Africa still use the same tools that were recently found in a cave. The tools were estimated to be 44,000 years old. 8. In South Africa, you are legally allowed to attach flamethrowers to your car in order to deter carjacking. 7. Tanzania has the world's highest rate of albinism. Unfortunately, albinos are often hunted by witch doctors in order to create various potions. 6. Gracia Machel is the only woman to have ever been First Lady of 2 different countries, Mozambique and South Africa. 5. More people speak French in Africa than in France. 4. Spain has 2 enclaves in Africa. They are Melilla and Ceuta. 3. According to Pew Research, by 2050, roughly 38% of the world's Christians will live in sub-Saharan Africa. 2. Most of the fastest runners in the world come from a single tribe in Kenya known as the Kalenjins. 1. Women of the Mercy tribe wear lip plates that can be up to 12 centimeters or 5 inches in diameter.